Ayn Rand predicted that ugly women would take up with the equity social movement, not beautiful women. Well, uh, there's no question, I think, that um, the feminists not only betrayed um, all of us by going the fascist road, but those that actually try to balance the issues and put some intelligence into the meaning of the issues, something other than just establishing pride of place as Amazons in the sex war, which of course is what a lot of it is, are people who have become intimidated. The intellectual framework for analyzing the issues of feminism and women's movements has been destroyed and challenged by the fascism that feminism helped create. There are some very sobering problems in feminism. One of them is, why did the feminists not come to the rescue of the women in Gaza? Well, you probably imagine that it's because Muslims hate pornography and so on. There's a conspicuous lack among Islamic men, the Nation of Islam, for example, which establishes its pride of place with heroic chivalry ideas about women, have been silent about Gaza. They've also been, the NAACP has been silent about Gaza. It's noticeable that the black veterans have not taken a stand for the women being denied education in Afghanistan. These things are noticeable. But probably the most revealing and most tawdry example of all is the way that Kuntu Repertory Theater created a framework with Lee Goodkind's office, which is like the good kind, to help Obama and Jeffin build momentum for Israeli feminist extremists like Leslie Katz calling herself a feminazi and bearing the standard of liberty in the name of the AIDS attack, which is how it worked. And they don't want to deal with that. So what they've done is they've said, Paul McCartney hates Jimmy Carrey and Yoko Ono hates Jimmy Carrey. So we're going to trade his life for John Lennon's life. And that's the way the revolutionary package was put together. And they've poisoned me in the eye. They've poisoned, a deaf man. They're truly treacherous and cruel people. And the legitimacy is weirdly sobering because it's the idea that they have the right to rape and demand sexual tribute from women, being promoted by feminist extremists, Zionists. Zionist feminist extremists promoting the idea that Jeff and Obama and Yusuf Endur have the right to demand sexual tribute from weaker women, building momentum for what they did in Gaza on the basis of the destruction of an internationally recognized safeguard. It's not that anybody likes adultery. I certainly would not have been involved with this woman from Kuntu, Rat Trap, if I had known she was married. She lied to me about her status at the University of Pittsburgh. But she had the right to commit adultery under international law. And they turned it into this war game, promoting the fundamentalist extremists, the cross burners, now joining Obama in the NAACP. And you're not going to find any feminists, not even Greta Thunberg has the courage to address the issues of matter of fact that are involved. Because they let out this screech. They tortured me. Then they got me involved with Leslie Katz, and then she let out this screech about me that became a vox populi. And they used it to create a war game over Midori Goto and what they called the plague mass, which they symbolize with positive and negative signs. And Will Zell-Brum, who is an extremist of he calls himself Zell, of the neo-Nazi direction. He associates himself with the Green Movement and the immunogenetic labs on Mount Desert Island. But he was promoting Goebbels, was named the representative, the sacred representative of the NAACP in this fundamentalist screech that was let out by the standard bearer from Zionism, promoting the standard of liberty in the name of the AIDS attack. And that's the way the pegs fit together. And there's really no rational way to dispute that. The screech was taken up by King Crimson and Peter Gabriel, who put out a crank military call. We think virginity proves rape. And they called the men who had kidnapped and tortured me and gassed me in a garage on hallucinogens as a child and said, wasn't he doing this stuff because he was having fun? And when the pictures emerged showing that, it was in a great deal of trauma. They didn't mind insulting everybody by then because nobody has the courage to deal with the issues. Nobody wants to take on Seattle's Black Panthers. They're Ripper Hatter people. And Will Zell was threatening HIV injection. The poison in the eye came from Ringo's gang, Clint Eastwood. So it's the complete degradation of all intellectual and academic processes. And they justified it by saying that I fell in love. I mean, in politics in America, you basically have a situation where every time you love anybody, it's Romeo and Juliet. Politics turns into Romeo and Juliet. It's suicide to love anybody in politics. And what they did was they made a witch's cauldron out of it from the hair movement with Yoko Ono cackling. And that's where it stands. That's the whole magical mystery farce of British Labour's Workers' Party. It was her house. She had a right under international law. And she lied to me. How dare you call me an adultery and say I should be murdered under the pretenses of the Scarlet Letter? It was her doing. And she was allowed to under international law. They don't want to defend the idea that, see, they're the ones who want to make sure that the women of Palestine never stray from under the jackboot of Zionist feminist extremists. And the women of Gaza are not really a trump in this card game because they're not likely to see the virtue of an undercover private eye looking into a pornographic genocide, even though it was meant to protect them from the future harm that Seattle called building momentum for Jeffen and Nosferatu.